called him the hottest tight end in the game?
No, not like that.
Speaking of somebody who's red hot, how about that?
That's a budget gift. I'm over here like, I want...
That's on
budget.
budget.
Falcons fans, what's up, and welcome back to the Friday Five. I'm your host, Will McFadden. I'm joined, as always, by Tori, McElhaney, and Terrin Waack. We have a matchup with the Arizona Cardinals on tap. We're going to break it all down with the 5 things you need to know about the Falcons heading into the weekend. But before we get to that, as always, we're going to start with our question of the day. Make sure you're following at Atlanta Falcons on TikTok to catch all of the questions of the day. But Tori, what do we have today?
Question of the day, who do you have winning the college football playoffs? And as there are 2 Georgia alums sitting here and 1 Alabama alum, I feel strongly that
James Madison.
Everyone probably knows what way we're going to lean.
I feel like we have to pick a backup.
Okay, so if we're not picking our alma maters, who are we picking?
Okay, so my alma mater, I am the Alabama grad, if people didn't know.
Yeah.
Shock. And then my backup, I'm going to go with Tulane. If I can't roll Tide, I'm going to roll Wave.
Good. Good.
Well said.
Well said.
That's a good reason, if you ask me.
Sure, yeah. I'm a University of Georgia grad, so I'm Bulldogs all the way, but if the Dogs don't win, I have Ohio State winning.
Yeah, Georgia is going to win it all.
Right, yeah.
So, but I will say, and this is no shot at our producer, Jared. Texas Tech. I do think their defense
is
amazing.
Very good. Who's that the middle linebackers that they have are really good.
Their linebacker group is fun.
Yeah.
So, again, it's going to be the Georgia Bulldogs.
It's not.
But if not, we got, Tulane, Ohio State, and Texas Tech. So, let's move on to another game featuring, there was a lot of red in our choices there. A lot of red in this matchup this weekend. And kind of
only
somebody...
mine didn't.
You what?
I was thinking about the colors. I was like, only my backup didn't have any red.
Yeah, I know. You hate a theme.
Sorry.
You hate a theme.
Speaking of no, go on. Okay.
I had to say, speaking of somebody who's red hot, how about that? Kyle Pitts coming off of the best game of his career and really the best 3-game stretch, I think, of his career. 24 catches, 338 yards, and 3 touchdowns over the last 3 games. It's been interesting because obviously he's talented enough to do all of that, but the opportunity has also been here for Kyle Pitts. Notably, Drake London has missed the last 4 games, which has allowed, I think, Kyle Pitts a little bit more room to operate in this offense, a larger share. And we talked about that on the final whistle, and we heard this week a little bit more to back up that belief, right, Tori?
Right, yeah, because that was the one thing that we were talking about last Friday was, how does the absence of Drake London ultimately change where Kyle Pitts falls in progressions? And that was something that Raheem Morris early on this week really spoke at length about, the fact that Kyle Pitts is your number 1 receiving option right now for a vast majority of the plays that the Falcons are running. And when it comes to what that means, it means that not only is Kyle Pitts taking on the bulk of what reps he would normally get, he's also taking on the bulks of the reps that Drake London would be the number 1 option within the progression for a quarterback, i.e. Kirk Cousins. I think that taking on that extra added responsibility means nothing if you're not catching the balls. So you may be the number 1 target, but if you're not open or if you're not showing kind of that level of trust with yourself and with your quarterback, then that's kind of a moot point. But that's not the case with what Kyle Pitts is doing right now. To your point, I do think that we're seeing him play with a lot of heart recently in this last month, and kind of taking that responsibility of the added targets, the added oomph of what they need him to be. He's taking that on, and he's showing us who he is when he has that level of responsibility. And I think it was even Raheem Morris said something along the lines of, you also, just in the flow of a game, you go to the hot hand. And against Tampa last Thursday, Kyle Pitts was the hot hand. He was 11 of 12 through the air.
And he got going early.
And he got going
early. I think when you see on the first or second drive Kyle catch a couple of passes, it's usually then a good sign that he's going to have kind of a big day. Right.
So I think that, trust breeds more trust. And that's something that we've seen. I don't think, and this was something I said, I think even in the podcast last week, is this Tampa game doesn't really feel like it happened in a vacuum. It feels like it was built up to based on what we've seen the last 3 games. And what Kyle Pitts has been able to do.
Yeah, I mean, what he's done is exactly what we all expected him to do when the Falcons drafted him 5 years ago. And it is interesting to see if he will continue this trend throughout the rest of the season. Obviously, he's going into an offseason with no contract. So this is a big time for him. But a little bit of a wrinkle that I think even progressed this week, Terrin, is whether or not Drake London will be back in the fold for Atlanta at any point this season, starting on Sunday. What's kind of the latest with his status?
As of Wednesday, Raheem Morris said that Drake London is no longer week to week. He is day to day. So you love that nuanced step in the right direction. He also said, and this is probably more telling than the status change, is that he's very hopeful, more hopeful, use both phrases, that Drake London will play this Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals. It kind of goes to what Tori was saying, where without Drake, there are a lot of targets going to Kyle Pitts. When you introduce Drake, it'll be interesting to see how that divvies, because it's not just Kyle Pitts, and which is something Raheem Morris touched on this week too, was it's Kyle Pitts, it's Drake London when he's healthy, it's Bijan Robinson, it's wanting to get Darnell Mooney back out there and active in the deep ball game. And so you have to balance those out. But like in Tampa, as you noted, he got a lot of targets and he caught them all. There was only one he did not catch, 11 of 12 for 166 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, that's so impressive. And Will, you mentioned the fact that he doesn't have a contract guaranteed for next season. He was asked about that in an open locker room earlier this week, and he said he would love to stay in Atlanta, but that's not his focus right now because there are still 3 games left.
Yeah.
And I was listening to, I believe it was Dukes and Bell on 92.9 on the drive home yesterday, Wednesday, and Kirk was on with them and talking about how he's going about the offense, right? Because just because Drake London is out doesn't mean it's like, all right, we're taking these 6 targets and allotting them right here to this player. There is a level of trust, and when the ball's snapped and he's reading the defense, these are so split-second decisions that he's making. But I think that Kyle doing what he did, not just last week, but over this 3-game stretch, cements that trust with Kirk a little bit. So even if Drake London is back in the fold, I kind of think that Kyle is going to stay involved.
Yeah, I do too, but I do think that it's going to look different. I think it has to look different because the main thing is targets that were Drake's previously that kind of got shifted to Kyle, they're probably going to go back to Drake because there's really no reason to think that they wouldn't, even with how much Kyle Pitts has been doing over the last 3-4 weeks that Drake hasn't been out there. But also, I think that Kirk Cousins, to your point, he has a say in where the ball goes. Like, defenses have a say in where the ball goes. And that's the biggest question I think I have for this week, going into this weekend, is, okay, if Drake London is out there, if he is available, how does that affect Kyle Pitts and what we have seen him do of late?
Yeah, and somebody else we've seen do a lot of late is James Pearce Jr. He's 6 straight games. I feel like each week that we just keep doing the show, it's like, all right, we need an update. We need like a little tracker.
JPJ tracker.
Exactly. Yeah. He's got 8 sacks on the season, which is the most by a Falcons rookie since 1982 when sacks became an official stat. He passed Mike Pitts, who had 7 in 1983. And I mentioned the 6 straight games. Only 3 other rookies since 1982 have done that. They would be Mike Crowell, Javon Kearse, and Micah Parsons. And the reason I mention that is because all 3 players at the end of that season were named Defensive Rookie of the Year. That is obviously what James Pearce Jr. is trying to do here. But, Terrin, I haven't seen James Pearce Jr.'s name atop a lot of lists. And it's driving me a little bit crazy because every time I turn on a game, like watching Seattle, it's, Nick Emanwari, of course he's going to be Defensive Rookie of the Year. Or you read an NFL.com article and it's like 3 other names and then an honorable mention. Why is that? Has he not done enough to kind of be the lead candidate for this award?
In my eyes, he's done enough. But no, in the public eye, you guess not. Because I looked at DraftKings. I do not gamble. But I looked at DraftKings. Must note.
Go on record.
Go on record. But I did look at DraftKings. And it has the Browns linebacker, Carson Schweissinger.
Schwessinger.
Yeah.
Schwessinger.
Yeah.
Carson.
Pass rush.
It has Carson as the top, DROY odds-on candidate at -240. Then you have Nick, who you mentioned, whose last name I'm also not going to botch.
Enyemwori.
Enyemwori.
Nope.
Enyemwori. Enyemwori.
Enyemwori. Enigmatic. That's what it sounds like you're trying to say.
Me. So it goes Carson, Nick, and then you have James Pearce Jr. And let's add Jalen Walker. Mm-hmm. And the reason those 4 at the top, if you want me to hit you with the stats real quick, is to see how they compare, I can do that. We're going with first names. Carson has 133 tackles, 9 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, and 1.5 sacks. What's his first name? Nick has 43 tackles, 11 pass breakups, 2.5 sacks, and an interception. James has 20 tackles, 8 sacks, 3 pass breakups, and a forced fumble and a fumble recovery. Walker, Jalen, I switched it up. Oh, shame. Jalen has 32 tackles, 5.5 sacks, a pass breakup, and forced 2 fumbles and recovered 1. And you want to blame the record a little bit sometimes, but then I paused and saw that the Browns and Carson are 3-11.
Yeah,
right.
I'm
so
like,
you can't
what are
do
we
that.
talking about?
No,
Right.
you want to.
No.
You want to, but you can't. And so Pearce and Walker have the most sacks among all rookies, though. So let's hang that hat available, and might as well throw Xavier Watts into this conversation too. He was on the DraftKings board. I do not gamble. With he has 79 tackles, 7 pass breakups, and 3 interceptions, and those are the most among rookies. Mm-hmm. So you have 3 rookies, the 3 who are still active. Billy Bowman Jr., throwing your name out there regardless. And
in our hearts.
In our hearts.
Yeah.
But that's all 3 that are still active from the Falcons roster, and that's so impressive when it comes to what this defense has been able to do with its young talent. And goodbye, Carson and Nick. Come on, Jalen, James, and Xavier.
There you go.
I'm just tackles don't do it for me. Seeing 133 tackles, who cares? Who cares? Are they tackling? Is he tackling the quarterback on those? No, he's not. He only has 1.5 times. So, looking at kind of the next 3 games, Tori, what does James Pearce Jr. have to do to kind of be the lead dog in this race at year's end, and what is he up against in kind of that effort?
Yeah, I think that if we could continue to see, honestly, just a level of consistency that we have seen him have over the last 6 games, I'm cool with that. Do you think
he needs to reach double digits?
I kind of do think in order to have the push that he needs, he does need to surpass that. Okay. I don't know if he needs to have 11.5, which is technically Claude Humphreys, who the Falcons actually, despite the fact that sacks haven't been an individual stat, recognized as an individual stat since 1982, the Falcons do recognize Claude Humphreys.
I recognize Claude Humphreys.
Right.
That dude was an animal.
Right, yeah. And so I say that, but he needs 11.5 in order to become the official, as the Falcons franchise see it, leader in sacks as a rookie. But you asked about the next few games and what you need to see. I think it's a really good opportunity for James Pearce Jr. going against some of these offensive linemen and offensive fronts that the next 3 teams have. It's actually interesting. I looked into this a little bit. It's kind of a mixed bag in terms of the offensive lines that the Falcons are going to go against over the next 3 weeks with the Cardinals, the Rams, and the Saints. Just kind of looking at it, Arizona has had some injuries at left tackle specifically. They've rotated in a couple of guys over the last couple of weeks. PFF, so take this as a grain of salt, ranked them going into Week 16 as the number 29th ranked offensive line group in the league. So I think this is a good opportunity for James Pearce Jr. to kind of continue to get after it a bit. The Rams are on the completely different side of the spectrum. They are a very talented offensive front, arguably the best offensive line in the league in terms of what they've been able to do protecting Matthew Stafford and also what they've been able to do in the run game. All 5 Rams starters rank among the top 10 players at their position in PFF overall grades. So you get the other side of the spectrum, which will, I think, really go to show how much James Pearce Jr. has potentially grown. If he can go and be a productive force to be reckoned with against a Rams offensive line in a game that is on prime time Monday Night Football after Christmas, I think that could be a really big push for him for this conversation of Rookie of the Year status. And then there's the Saints. And the Saints kind of are closer to the back end, but kind of sort of more in the middle for their offensive line. They've been improving of late. They had their right tackle return from injury just this past week, and Kelvin Banks Jr., who's their rookie, has been a bright spot for them, the group at large, for a while for his rookie season. So this is a good opportunity for James Pearce Jr. to take advantage of maybe some lesser offensive fronts with Arizona and the Saints, but then also make a statement against the best offensive line group with the Rams coming up too.
Yeah, it's a good microcosm for kind of where the Falcons are in this final little 3-game stretch as well. Tori, I'm coming right back to you. We saw James 2 sacks last week. Obviously, the big play from Kyle. Like, as a team, playoffs are out of the picture, right? So what is left is a kind of a game-by-game, individual-by-individual basis, what we're evaluating. So Thursday night was a lot of fun, right? It ultimately doesn't change the fortunes, but did it change your feeling about this team, and did it show you anything that is going to stick with you?
Yeah, I think so. And I wrote a little bit about this after the game, about how this win felt like the Falcons got the monkey off their back a little bit. If it did anything, yes, it's good to beat the divisional champion for the last few years, like in Tampa Bay at home on their throwback.
Take that, Baker.
Like, yeah, to do that against that team at that point in time and kind of put your boot on their face. I don't think that's throat.
There you go.
Yeah.
I hate that I knew that so quickly.
You did know that so quickly. Thank you for the assist. But I think that they showed a lot. Going back to what I said about Kyle Pitts showing a lot of heart, I think the team at large showed a lot of heart. And I wrote a lot about, yes, they didn't have anything really to fight for, but they ended up fighting for each other, which I think the fan base, as much as anybody, needed to see that. And I think that I talked about this a little bit on the show that I do with Kelly Price for Fox 5 about how I really do think that when you look at the scope of where this team is, like, they needed to kind of give the fan base something to hope for. And I think that this game of them fighting for each other and ultimately beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after losing 7 of their last 8 was so important for the feelings that you have going into the rest of this season, and potentially showing that they're going to fight for each other for the next 3 games.
Yeah, what about you, Terrin? I mean, I know Tori and I talked on Final Whistle after the game, but it's been a full week now. Like, what's kind of stuck with you, and what are your takeaways from that one?
I think back to earlier in this season. I don't remember what game it was. It could have been after multiple games. But Raheem Morris said, like, great teams win ugly games.
Yeah.
Like, they pull off ugly wins. And I don't want to say Thursday was ugly, but it sure wasn't pretty. I think about the 19 penalties that the Falcons committed. And I saw this tweet that said, the Falcons are only the second team in NFL history, the first since 1944, to win a game despite committing 15 or more penalties than their opponent. The Buccaneers had 4 penalties. But does that matter? Because who won? The Falcons. And I have been saying for weeks, I don't care how you do it. You just need to win. And the Falcons did that. I wanted to see a win. I got it. The fans, as Tori said, needed to see this win. I mean, it shows, as you said, that they're fighting. There are 3 games left.
Yeah.
It could be 3 fun games. That's what Thursday showed.
That's what they need. They need to show that they're a fun group and that they're an explosive group and that they make the plays that show up on, Sports Center, ESPN, all those things. I also want to say a note to the penalties. Raheem Morris was asked early in the week, too, about penalties. And he did say, he was like, you may not agree with all of them, but there are a few that you definitely can't have happen again. And I think that one of them is, like, these false starts that continue to rear their ugly head a little bit in these moments where you cannot have that happen. I think those are one things that, like, if you take away some of those, you feel very different about some of these stats and things. So
I still just can't get over the tweet that you referenced, the first team since 1944. When did the NFL start? I feel like 1944 is like
very...
year 2 of the the
was the only other team in 1943.
Yeah, exactly. It happened like the very first season, and so it's like, well, since 1944, they're the only. Like, I don't know.
I'm not going to throw the tweet person under the bus, but I may go look at it and be like, buddy.
Don't reveal your sources.
Right.
Yeah, but the reason why it is 1920 NFL start date. Okay, so 24 years. It was past drinking age for the NFL. Congratulations.
Then things got sloppy again. Just kidding.
So the Cardinals are actually a really good test case for why good teams kind of find ways to win ugly games, close games, because that's what this league is, right? The Falcons have been in so many one-score games where you feel like a play or two here and there, and this season is totally different. The Cardinals have been in the 3rd most one-score games this season. They played in 9. That's a lot of one-score games, right?
Stress.
They're 2-7 in those games, and specifically kind of before their bye week, they went on a stretch, and they're in the NFC South. They're playing the 49ers. It's a one-score game. They're playing the Seahawks. It's a one-score game. They're playing some really good teams. And so that gave you kind of an idea of like what the caliber of this team was, even if their record was going to probably lie to you a little bit about what it is. Now, they're dealing with some injuries and things like that. But, Tori, like when you look at this matchup, it feels a little bit like maybe a measuring stick game of sorts because you've got two teams that are continuing to fight and do have some talent on both sides of the ball.
It is funny because both of these teams, I think if you were to say that they could have had and maybe should have had 5 more wins than they do based on how they performed, like I think that's fair to say. Like to your point about Arizona has been in so many one-score games where they just ultimately didn't pull it out. The Falcons not being able to make a statement or the play when they needed to that ultimately led to a loss. I think that these are two teams that, gosh, it feels like every single week when I do the weekly power rankings that Arizona and Atlanta are right there side by side because they feel like a similar team in terms of the outcomes that they're having and not stringing wins together. But they also kind of have these similarities where, Trey McBride is, I think, one of the better, if not the best hottest tight end in the game right now, and that's Jeff Ulbrich who said that.
He called him the hottest tight end in the game?
No, not like that. Also, like, that doesn't sound right. I didn't mean it like that.
Playing well.
He's playing very well. So I think that when I look at this Arizona and Atlanta matchup, it was funny because during our pre-production meeting for this show, Will called them doppelgangers of each other. And that, to me, having done these power rankings over and over the last couple of years, they've been right there beside each other. They've been right there drafting beside each other for the last few years. So to answer your question and to also kind of back up your point about them being doppelganger-ish, like that's what it feels like. And you need to be able, if you're the Falcons, you need to be able to at least go out and beat your doppelganger.
Yeah, Terrin, does that make this game feel like more important in a weird way because it does feel like you're on kind of a level playing field here?
Saying it's more important, it feels tough because there are 3 games left. I think they're all kind of equally important to finish out on a way that you want. But I think this one kind of, with the level playing field, you want to think that it'll be a good matchup, a good time, and kind of show what each team is really capable of when they're able to operate at a normal level rather than having their backs against the wall or kind of scrambling to, I don't know how to do an opposite analogy of that one, so we're just going to keep going. I was like, but because you look at the Cardinals as the doppelganger. I dare people to say that 5 times in a row and try to spell it too. So yeah, they're 3-11, 4th in the NFC West. That's a stacked division considering 3rd place is the 49ers with the 10-4 record.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Whoa. And so you have that game, and then you have the Rams, and it goes along the lines of like your offensive line thinking process, where like the Rams are what you want to be in the sense of that they're 11-3 and they're atop of that division with the Cardinals in it, and they're not coming to Atlanta this Monday but next Monday, and so that's going to be the back against the wall. Like you want to fight against this team that's really good and show you can fight at their level. Then you have the Saints who are 4-10 and 4th in the NFC South, and they're that opposite analogy where I'm like, I keep thinking like you're running too fast and that you're going to stumble and fall because you're trying to be too good against something that's not good.
Or you're like out over your skis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, let's be real too. The Saints beat the Panthers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, Saints are red hot right now.
Yeah,
So
in back-to-back weeks. So
it literally matches with your offensive line statement
Right,
where like
yeah.
Cardinals and Saints are
they can trip you up.
6-7.
Yeah.
And then you have the Rams. Is that how that's used?
I don't know.
I'm not hip. But then you have the Rams who are very good and will be the test of who you want to be, who you want to compete against. So you're kind of sandwiching what you want versus
what you need to be.
what you need to be. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, as the representative and spokesman for all Gen Alpha, I can tell you use 6-7 correctly. Congratulations on that. Let's wrap things up really quickly with a little bit of an unwrapping, maybe. We've got Christmas.
That was a good one, Will.
Anybody, thank you. We've got Christmas next week, so by the time you hear the next Friday 5, it will have already happened, we wanted to kind of go over a few wish list items that only Santa can provide for the Falcons. Tori, let's start with you. Is there any gift that you're asking Santa to provide?
Yeah, I think it goes back to our earlier topic about James Pearce Jr., and you had made mention of it. Can he get double-digit sacks? Like, if James Pearce Jr. can get double-digit sacks, I think for Christmas, I think that is such a gift to a Falcons organization that has been clamoring for a pass rush and clamoring for, since the John Abraham days, of someone who can disrupt quarterbacks and that quarterbacks hate to see coming. And I think that's who James Pearce Jr. has turned into. I think Brandon Dorlus has turned into that. I think Jalen Walker has turned into that. They have a collective of edge rushers. It's not just James Pearce Jr., but in terms of having somebody who could get the double digits, like James Pearce Jr. is the closest, and I think that would be a good gift.
That would be so nice.
Yep.
Taryn, what about you?
That's a budget gift. I'm over here like, I want...
That's on budget. That's on budget.
That's a realistic gift.
Okay.
I want a
unrealistic?
Charlie Warner 20-plus yard touchdown reception. I want a Caden Ellis pick six of at least 50 yards running.
Wow.
I want Jalen Walker, James Pearce Jr., and Xavier Watts to tie for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Oh, tie.
Dang, okay.
Interesting.
I want Zane Gonzalez to beat the field goal record range in all of NFL history at a buzzer beater.
Wow.
In overtime. Oh, that would be stressful for me writing the gamer, but I want it.
Man, those are some rich kid wishes, Tori.
Those are out of my budget personally.
Yeah, you're shopping over at Macy's. I see you.
Where's that platinum credit card?
God, going out with the grandparents and everything.
Yeah,
It's crazy. Yeah. That was always the best.
Yeah.
I want Xavier Watts to get another interception. He's one shy of tying the all-time Falcons rookie record for interceptions. I also would love for them to just beat the Rams. Honestly, like that's kind of
That's a good one.
That's kind of just what I want to see. That's what I'm here for the rest of the way. So
That's it.
Is that one game? I feel like there's a fun little rivalry between those two teams. But this was also a lot of fun. So I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Spend time with your family, watch some football. Let's go get a win on Sunday afternoon. But Tori, Terrin, thank you so much for joining me. Jared, Sophia, thank you guys for producing. And thank you all for listening. So, Will McFadden, Tori McElhaney, Terrin Waack, we will see you next time.